It's 200 days to go before the August 2026 polls. Now, debt, high unemployment, the high cost of living, plus a shifting geopolitical landscape, every country's foreign policy is at test. These are issues high on the agenda as campaigns get underway. The question is, who has the solutions? The ruling United Party for National Development maintains that it is delivering on its 2021 promises of economic stability and reform, while some argue that the progress has been slow and unfair. Tonight, on Costa's Cross-Examination, we seek answers to these questions. I introduce my guest right after this. Good evening, and thank you so much for joining me on Costa Cross-Examination. My name is Costa Monsa. We're live on DSTV channel 271. We're also live on GoTV channel 20. We're streaming live on our Facebook pages, Diamond TV Online, as well as Diamond Media Zambia. My guest this evening is President of the Economic Front Party, Mr. Wynter Kabimba. Honorable Wynter Kabimba, you've been summoned to Costa's Cross-Examination.
God rise. Good evening,
thank you
Costa,
so much.
And a Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. I haven't seen you in a long time. How have you been?
Thank you. I'm keeping well, thank you.
Great.
I'm well.
I think let's start with maybe trying to get an understanding. We have heard obviously of alliances trying to form before the election of August, especially in the opposition. There's Tonse, there's People's Pact, there's this and that. But there is this alliance that was formulated in 2021 with the UPND and what the president calls its alliance member. How does your party, the Economic Front, fit into the scheme of things in this alliance?
Okay. Costa, thank you very much for bringing up this question. It keeps on coming up on main fora during my radio programs, TV programs, and I'm happy that we are starting this program with it. Look, in 2024, April, we held a press briefing in which we said that we were engaging the UPND, and I think the words used during that press briefing were very deliberate, that we are engaging the UPND, our colleagues in the UPND, with a view of joining the existing UPND alliance. So from that time, we have had constant to and fro contacts. And the issue that has been the sticking point was that we have asked for an instrument, because this is an existing alliance. So the view we took and our understanding was that there's a document that binds, UPND and its alliance partners. So we wanted to be finished with that document so that we look at the rules of engagement. What are the arrangements? What is the interrelationship between and amongst the political parties? Unfortunately, and for some reason that we still do not understand, that document has not been available, has not been made available to us, if it ever does exist. So that has been the problem. So we are not members of the UPND alliance yet, in the absence of the document of engagement, and also us moving forward to sign an MOU with the UPND and its alliance partners. And I think this point is very, very important for our members out there to understand and members of the public out there to understand.
So how best would you describe your relationship? Is this a loose alliance, or are you an independent party as things stand? We
are an independent political party. We are an independent political party, and if you have followed our participation, it is that where we think that UPND is right, we have not been timid about it. We have pronounced ourselves that here UPND is right. Where we think HH is right as head of state, we have not been ashamed about it. We have said here HH is right, and we have given reasons why we think that he is right. And where he is wrong, we have come out openly and said this is not right, this is wrong.
7 months before the August elections, what then is your statement, or what is your position for the sake of the public, your members? Are you participating in this election? Do you still seek intentions of joining the UPND in advance?
We are open to any further developments, and in the absence of anything that would make this relationship mature, we are taking this matter back to the Central Committee, which actually resolved that we get involved in this alliance, or that we engage the UPND in this alliance, and the Central Committee will make a decision.
So, just to be clear again, you're still only interested in working with the UPND. No eyes set on anything or relationship with other alliances that are existing?
We haven't exhausted the route, of engagement with the UPND, and I think it would be unwise and unfair for us to prosecute and decide, to court another alliance or another group of alliances that are in existence today.
You're quite a seasoned, civic leader, a seasoned, a politician, both at grassroots and you've served in cabinet before. Yeah. There's lots of political sentiments coming out as we gear up for this election. I'd like to pick your mind, really. How would you analyze the current political landscape? Some say that the UPND really has no opposition. President Hakainde Hichilema will have a landslide victory because the opposition is dead. Others have a theory that the opposition really is not in the political party per se opposition, but the people themselves, who seem not to be happy that the UPND have failed to deliver on the promises of 2021. What are you picking on the ground with your experience and with your political punditry?
Costa, politics is extremely dynamic, and it was one United States of America president, I think it was President Coolidge, who said that the unexpected always happens in politics. I remember that phrase. The unexpected always happens in politics. So politics is not a mathematical science. It's a social science. It carries with it, and it responds to dynamics of human interaction and human perceptions. So when I hear people make absolute statements, and this applies to both sides, especially our colleagues in the UPND saying that, oh no, the opposition is weak. Oh no, there is no opposition. Oh no, HH is set for a landslide. I really sit back and I say to myself, are these politicians? Because if you are a politician, you can't make an absolute statement in politics. There was a time, I think in the UK, when all the polls showed that the Conservative Party was going to lose that election. All the polls, they were wrong. The Conservatives won that election with a landslide. Politics. The Chawama election, which has just gone by a week ago, should be making everybody that is holding that view review their point of view. Because when you look at Chawama, really, it was UPND against nobody. It was UPND against nobody. FDD, which was used as a special purpose vehicle by the alliance grouping, doesn't have a councillor in this country, doesn't have an MP in this country. It didn't have the MP in the post-2016 elections. It didn't have any member of parliament in the post-2021 elections. So the question is, how did that special purpose vehicle win.
But if you say it's UPND versus nobody,
yes,
is this country so discontent? Are the people so discontent that we go back into the era of the one-party state where it was UNIP versus a frog, or UNIP versus...
No, I'm using Chawama. I'm using Chawama.
Yes.
I'm using Chawama to respond to this principle, which seems to be holding a rank. You know that UPND will win with a landslide. That there is no opposition. And feeding into your comment, which is my view, that really the opposition to the UPND and any political party in power is not an institutionalized structure called a political party. It is the people that decide which structure to use to express themselves in an election.
With that point made, going again into the election,
yeah,
the UPND, you've answered the issue of landslide, but they claim they've scored on a number of fronts. Let me begin with what they may call the, not the micro, but the macro, economics. They are boasting more recently that they've managed to build unprecedented reserves of about $5.2 billion for this country, just over 5 months of import cover in the national reserves. They've managed to change our tax collection system at a global level into away from the US dollar into Chinese yuan. They have about 3 companies now listing over $1 billion on the Lusaka Stock Exchange. Just last week they were boasting of an oversubscribed bond and treasury bills over 10.2 billion kwacha. The kwacha against the US dollar is now down, ranging between 20 or 19 kwacha. The president on his return from his farm met teachers, and he said the theory or his policy rather on free education is working, especially in the rural areas, based on the results that have shown at grade 12 and other grades. What then can you say about the performance vis-a-vis some of these indicators like Chawama that you allude to?
Let's use Chawama as a benchmark. What Chawama did show as clear evidence is that all the successes of the UPND, as you list them, have not improved the livelihood of the person in Chawama. That's what I get from the Chawama result. Okay? That you can talk about delivery of desks, you can talk about free education, you can talk about employment of teachers, you can talk about reinstatement or restoration of meal allowances at UNZA. You can talk about everything. The Chawama people are saying, if this is what you have done, if this is what you call a success story, certainly it isn't for us. That's a message I get from Chawama. And therefore, I would contextualize Chawama and say, what is it that people are looking for outside those indices that you list? And I think that should be the question for the UPND, to really analyze and get to the correct answer. What is it that the people of Chawama wanted over and above all the success stories of the UPND? And in my view, the answer is simple. The people of Chawama are looking for answers to their bread and butter problems, first and foremost. And I think that's important for the UPND to understand. Let me tell you, yesterday, Mrs. Kabimba sent our domestic hand to go to the market, I think it was Kawata Market, to go and buy so-called village chicken, but which lives in town. Okay? And I overheard a conversation between the young man and herself, and she was screaming and she was saying, what? 320 kwacha nkuku. And I heard the boy say, yes. And I wanted a village chicken for my lunch today. And we had to buy that village chicken at 320 kwacha. That was the cost of a goat 2 years ago. It is today the cost of a chicken.
But obviously understand that it's on the input side. The cost of feed is high.
Exactly. That's where the issue is, that we are a vassal economy. We are an economy which is dependent today on South Africa. All the goods that you find, 90%, 95% in ShopRite, in Pick and Pay, and in these malls are manufactured and produced in South Africa. All the vaccines for the chickens that are grown, that are reared in this country, come from South Africa. All the vaccines for cattle that you need to vaccinate your cattle against foot and mouth disease, and etc., come from South Africa. So we are an economy which is creating employment more for South Africa than the Zambians. So UPND has to be careful in their analysis. I'm not a conventional economist. I've not studied economics, but what I do understand, Costa, I understand political economy.
People economics.
Yeah.
Let's still stick to Chawama, that you say we can use as probably a sample or a yardstick. Other political science theories, again, with people have engaged, and I want to get your take on this, is that the trend of Zambian politics and elections is that an urban province or urban constituencies like Chawama, Lusaka and Copperbelt will always have an uprise and will swing opposition against a ruling party. Can we use the Chawama election as the same political temperature in rural Zambia today, based on historical political trends? Is it true that the urban vote always swings anti-ruling party, and then probably they score as a ruling party, regardless of the UPND, in rural parts? Is the UPND scoring better in terms of rural development?
Generally, as a principle, yes. Generally, as a principle, yes. I remember many years ago when the Botswana Democratic Party was very strong. They always lost the election in Gaborone, the capital city. I remember many a time when the ruling party lost the election in Nairobi, the capital city. You remember during the MDC era in Zimbabwe, ZANU-PF lost elections in Harare. Okay? So the answer is generally that appears to be the trend. But let me tell you the context of our country. Our country now is very difficult to distinguish between the urban life and the rural life. It's very difficult to argue that the discontent of Chawama is not the discontent of somebody in Kashikishi. Because the life which people live today has been financialized. Everybody is dependent on money. It's a cash kind of life for everybody across the board, urban and rural. Okay? So if Chawama is complaining about the high cost of millimil, you will find that a fellow in Kalabo did not grow any maize, has no capacity to grow any maize, and they move from Skongo to go into Kalabo to go and buy millimil. They move from Kalabo to come into Mongu to come and buy their millimil. So the impact of the economy is fundamentally the same.
Have we managed to successfully decentralize in terms of development delivery? Because,
no.
I mean, Chawama may have a number of schools, they may have a level 1, hospital, the biggest problems may be electricity for small, businesses and so on. But Kalabo, Kashkishi, and all these other places, once they see a borehole, for them it's great development that they haven't seen in years. They see a school, they see a clinic. So probably these gaps still change the dynamics?
That's a mistake that politicians have always made. Okay? And this is where we have gone wrong as politicians. You sit in the Ministry of Local Government and Housing and you decide where to deliver boreholes. And all that the rural people see is a borehole drilling machine, and they started drilling a borehole. And when you see people coming around, as pastime to watch the borehole being drilled, you really think that you have won their hearts. Wrong. If you asked the people in Kashkishi, they will tell you, here we are concerned about mini meal before you even provide us with water. We have a system which we tried to delve into and correct with the Microsat. A system which is elitist in the sense that the members of parliament and ministers think that they know what the people want more than the people do. We have no system, Costa, in this country where you can ask a member of parliament how many times they have had a meeting in their constituency, even when parliament is in recess. So you have no way of figuring out the interaction and the feedback system. We don't have a feedback system between the electorate, the voters, and their elected representatives. There's nothing. The guys come here. If they come from a rural constituency, they become members of parliament. I'll tell you what they do. The first thing that they do is divorce their wife they came with from the village. Okay? The second thing that they do, they've got this big car from parliament on loan. The third thing that they do, they look for a residential plot to put up a house in Lusaka. And that becomes a disconnect between them and the people that elected.
Are the development committees working, especially with the huge amounts of CDF that we're now allocating to each, constituency? We're talking 40 million in the 2026, budget. The amended constitution of last year has just again said that members of parliament need to begin sitting in the council chambers to deliver, development. The Auditor General's reports are showing us otherwise.
Some of these things that cascade into legislation, I wish people could have some historical analysis to them. Okay? The principle of members of parliament sitting in council chambers was mooted by Michael Sata and myself in 1991. When we moved from the Local Administration Act to legislate or to enact a multi-party politics local government system, I was the chairman of that committee, and we actually mooted the idea that in order to create a harmony between the members of parliament and the councillors, it was better for the system than before to have members of parliament sit in the council. Okay? The experience we had from there is that where you have mainly in urban areas, for example, let me take Lusaka, where you have out of 7 constituencies, maybe you'd have 4 members of parliament that also become ministers. The evidence we got, the feedback we got from that system was that these guys spent more time intimidating the councillors than actually assisting them in in participating and debating the issues. If somebody,
that's the ministers.
That's the ministers. If somebody had asked me, and they wanted to go that route, I would have said to them, you know what you do? Don't give the ministers a voting right. let them sit in the council, but no voting right. Let the elected councillors be the ones to vote. Okay? So we were able to prove that that system was not delivering in the manner that we expected it to deliver. And I'm surprised that our colleagues in the UPND, without going back into that historical obstacles, whatever you're going to call them, and the other, they put it back, and think that they are making progress.
But just to get you clear, in 1991 you pushed for that.
Yes.
That MPs must sit.
Yes.
In the council. What was your rationale then, and what is your position? Are you saying that it is wrong for them to go back and sit?
I've said earlier that the rationale for that was that both the member of parliament, who is representing a constituency, and the councillors who are elected in that constituency, in the wards in that constituency, would then be meeting from time to time, so that the issues of development are harmonized and they would be pushing development from the same perspective. And I think the rationale was good. However, because we are mortals, we are human beings of flesh and blood, we didn't foresee that what we were doing was simply creating a problem, and in some cases acrimony between councillors and members of parliament. In some situations, there were members of parliament that started looking at the councillors that were hardworking as a challenge to them when it comes to general elections. And that in itself just started a fight which was intractable and difficult to quench as a fire. So there are more problems in that arrangement from our past history than what UPND thinks is going to achieve.
In short, you would rather the MPs are not part of...
They should be out of the councils, going by the experience that I've just alluded to.
Where then have we failed to get it right? Because should there be a clear, like we have the separation of powers, should there be a distinction between local government and legislation? Because sometimes you wonder, the role of a member of parliament starts and ends with making laws. It's legislation. They're not there to deliver development.
That is where we have, Costa, you are very right. That is where we've got it wrong. Okay? Or that's where we have misled the people. What do the councillors do? I followed a bit of the campaign in Chawama. Did you hear what each candidate was saying? Each one of the candidates, the FDD candidate and the UPND candidate, each one of them at one point said, I'm going to build a school here. Okay? That's not the role of an MP. When members of parliament go, or candidates go out to campaign, what they talk about is, I'm going to deliver development. So the people have no idea about the role of a member of parliament other than the fact that he is the one who delivers the development. And when the member of parliament, is minister, then that development, I'm the one who talks to the president, and I'm going to deliver because I speak to the president. If people realize that the role of a member of parliament is merely to pass legislation, then we'll be asking members of parliament, what are you still doing that the 1995 Lands Act, which is causing so much grief to our people in rural areas, is still there, and you guys have done nothing about it? Those are questions we should be putting to members of parliament. Not delivering a borehole, not delivering a 2x3 classroom block under CDF. So we are speaking to wrong people, and the guys are actually acting like fraudsters, answering to, responding to questions which are not even supposed to be theirs.
Let's get back to this issue of what the political temperature or dynamics look like before, August. UNIP, ruled this country. We were in one-party state. Things changed in 72 and here and there. 27 years. The MMD came in and ruled 20 years. But when you look, coming out of UNIP and multipartism, I think the MMD was a bit widespread. And what I mean is that they had presence across all the 9 provinces then. Come 2001, the PF comes on the scene, they win one seat. By the time we're getting to 2006, 2011, the country started splitting politically into what others would call battlegrounds or strongholds, and getting then into 2011, it's like Luapula, Northern, Muchinga, and Copperbelt were all green. Then you have this Northwestern and Southern and whatever that has gone red. Where did this all come from? How do we begin to describe our political hegemony? Is it around tribe? Is it around social class? How did we begin to find ourselves in these so-called strongholds?
We got to that point, Costa, because of the type of leaders that our politics has started to produce. We have a crop of leaders now that have very little to say to the people other than wave the political trump card of ethnicity, of fear-mongering to our people, that if you choose Costa here, who doesn't come from this area, and he becomes the president, then you are in danger, and vice versa. You know, again, history must teach us something here. Kaunda was conscious. One of the things, if you read the early history of Zambia during the Kaunda time, was actually to fight the ugly head of ethnicity that was rearing itself in Zambian politics. And Kaunda and his group, in their infinite wisdom, then realized if this is not nipped in the bud, there will be no development in this country, and we may slide into ethnic tensions and civil war. So he dealt with it very, very effectively. And it was just from my reading recently that I realized that Kaunda actually copied that from Joseph Tito of Yugoslavia, who was able to hold together 9 provinces which were actually autonomous countries: Serbia, Montenegro, and Croatia and others. They were held together, in one. They were ethnically diverse, and Tito went on to coin a slogan that there is a brotherhood in unity. So it doesn't matter whether you are a Serb, whether you are a Croat, whether you come from Herzegovina. The man across you, the woman across you, is your brother and is your sister. And I think Kaunda copied it from there. So he brought it and created a policy of tribal balancing. And I'll give you a specific example that I always give to people when I discuss this matter with them. I pick on Zambia Railways. Zambia Railways, when the Canadians in the 70s, I think 70s or early 80s, gave a grant to Zambia Railways to bring in the new locomotives, and wagons, they appointed a guy under that grant. The Canadians insisted that the general manager for Zambia Railways must be Canadian. So the help of the general manager. When the term of office ended, no, in fact it was Richard Vennis. Of office Andy, I think it was Andy appointed first, Mazoka, as general manager of Zambia Railways. When Anderson Mazoka resigned following the Mumpansha Commission of Inquiry, an inquiry whose findings were that there was tribalism in Zambia Railways, leading to Mazoka's resignation, he appointed he appointed the Basil Monzi as general manager. So it was one Tonga replacing another Tonga under the policy of tribal balancing. Okay? When he appointed Basil Monzi as PS for Works and Supply, who does he appoint? He appointed Emmanuel Hachipuka, another Tonga, to replace Basil Monzi. So he did that in all the parastatals. If the general manager is from Eastern Province and is promoted or removed, he got another one from Eastern Province. So merit did not matter. What mattered was the tribal balancing. So that because the national cake in the third world country is very small, and everybody is looking, at this cake, that nobody should get the largest share.
But shouldn't meritocracy be the basic benchline? Yes,
it is. Rather, it should be. It should be. But you also have to be conscious of this national cake. We don't have Costa. We don't have in this country a private sector that can suck in many of our people that are educated from the diversity of our ethnic groupings. So ideally, everybody's livelihood is dependent on a government job.
So moving forward from KK's time, leadership that followed failed on the tribal balancing. Is this how we find ourselves in this so-called struggle?
Chiluba tried it, not as an individual, but out of no choice because of the diversity of the MMD in 1990, 91, up to about 1996. But you see that towards, post 1996, MMD started crumbling. Okay? So, the issue of these ethnic sentiments should be worrying all of us. And I also tell you this, that the people actually fueling this and driving it are the elite in politics and not even the people on the ground. I have a chap near our farm who retired from a primary school. He comes from Lundazi. When the villagers heard that the man was retiring, 3 village headmen went to him to offer him a place for him to live in that area. They didn't want him to go. We don't want this man to go. It was the locals that went to him and said, "You are a good man. Come and continue living amongst us." And yet, if that man wanted to become a councillor in that area, it would be one of the local politicians there who would go to the locals and say, "Don't vote for him, he comes from Lundaza, not from here."
But with the progresses made of intermarriages and urbanization, people are finding jobs in different places, one would have thought then that this should not even be, a problem. The president, while on his vacation more recently, some have found his statements he made in Choma again as a bit disuniting for a president who says he is standing on a policy of one Zambia, one nation, and uniting in the same spirit that you talk about. He talks about tribal balancing. Why in 2026 are we having a problem that was sorted out early in the 1970s?
It has been reignited. It has not been it was sorted out by Kaunda. It has been reignited by the crop of politicians or leaders that we have bred, over time.
Who you are among? You're still a politician.
Yes, I'm amongst them. I don't believe in that. If you come, brother, if you know me, one of the fellows that I have in my family, whom I picked from one of my friends as a driver, Emmanuel Chikumbi, is from Luapula. And yet, when he was getting married, I paid the lobola for this young man. We have integrated him as a member of our family. Okay? When I went into government, I told Mr. Sata I would like to come with my own driver. And he knew him. He said, "Come with him." Okay? But the argument which I hear, that, oh no, there are intermarriages, none of us has a choice, about if your son came to you and say, I want to get married to a lousy girl. You have no choice. That is his choice. And you can't go and stand on Mount Olympus and say, look at me, my son is married to a lousy girl and therefore I'm not a tribalist. No, you are lying to people. Okay? So it's not intermarriages that is going to unite this country. It is the mindset of those of us that call ourselves leaders, that the treatment we have for other human beings, for other Zambians, must be seen. And this is not about what you say. It's about what you do.
Was the 10-year tenure of the Patriotic Front a divisive one to marginalize other groupings? Because that's the feeling we get, that others were victimized, others were ill-treated, others were not given equal opportunities.
Let me put it this way. I disagreed with Mr. Sata when he became president to continue with the FDJ policy of appointing district commissioners, PSCs, provincial PSCs, okay, and posting them into their areas of origin. I disagreed with the policy that the district commissioner for Monze must be Tonga, that the district commissioner for Nchelenge must be Bemba or Wushi, whatever. I disagreed, and I discussed this matter with him personally.
Did he act on it?
He didn't. Unfortunately, he didn't. And I gave him an example. I said, this is not what Kaunda did. And I gave him an example. I said, in the Mumba district here, we had the Billy Chanda, who was district governor for Mumba for many years. My own uncle, Willard Ntalasha, was district governor in Mukoshi. I never heard anybody in Mumba district saying that Kaunda sent us a Bemba. Okay? And yet, listen to this, and yet, when Mr. Sata appointed Ben Piri, the comedian, as PS for Wapula, he had to revoke that appointment within an hour. Because according to what he told me, the people in Wapula had risen and said, you can't send us somebody, as PS from Eastern Province here, in Wapula. When he revoked the appointment, I went to him and I said, what you have done is wrong. You are rewarding ethnicity. And what did you see? Nixon Chilangwa, provincial minister. Even under ECL. Charles Mushota, PS. Because they both come from Wapula. You can't run a country like that. You can't.
So in short, the PF did it wrongly?
It started doing it wrongly. Okay? And unfortunately, we haven't seen much change to date.
How would you describe it in the UPND? Okay. They are claiming, even through the president, that they are doing a lot of tribal balancing. But again, he reignited that aspect in his speech. What do you make of his speech in Joma, of the fact that there was victimization in Lusaka of people from the south?
I made a statement. I don't know whether it was carried by one of the tabloids. I said, HH failed to contextualize that. Okay? I watched the video clip myself. The context in which he put it was personalized or regionalized. And yet, that problem was systemic. It was prevalent across the country. Okay? If he had made that statement, for example, on the Copper Belt, I don't think anybody would have raised eyebrows. They raised eyebrows because he made the statement in his own area. So I said the context that the president has put this problem, which has been inherited somewhat, was wrong. If he had said that in Mukoshi and said, you people from Mukoshi, you are being beaten in Lusaka by some of the fellows now that they have gotten back into UPND, I don't think anybody would have raised the eyebrows. That problem was happening everywhere. Intercity bus terminus was a rat hole for for hooliganism, thievery, extortion, and everybody who went through that intercity bus terminus was miserable, without exception, from all over the country.
So how do we get the country rid of this tribal hegemony?
Listen, this is about a mindset of the people. You know, the country generally looks up to its leaders. The children in the home, they look up to their parents to get values from. Why, Costa, I ask, why is it that this problem is only prevalent in politics? I go to church myself, and I'm sure you do. Do you care who your pastor is? Do you care who the priest is? You don't. Do you care how many members are in the congregation? You don't. Do I care how many salas are in my congregation in church? I don't even know if there is any. When you go to clubs, I found you at the golf club. Do you care who buys you a drink there that it must be Bemba? No, you don't. Okay? So, you actually find that this is a problem confined and prevalent in politics. Only. If I go to the bank, to go and borrow, money, do I care whether the general manager is from my area or not? Does he care? He wants to make money for the bank. That is his duty. So the crop of leaders which is emerging now, and this is what saddens me, the educated, with PhDs, with master's degrees, with first degrees, they have become so parochial in their mindset that they think the only way they can advance their political agenda is to go ethnic. Because they have nothing else to say to the people, in my view. Okay? And I think the people must see them for what they are. They are destroying the country. Reject them. You and me are the same. My mother is Bemba. Have you ever heard me going around telling people my mother is Bemba from Umpika? Because it doesn't matter. But I hear some people singing, oh no, this one I'm related, me, this side, I'm this, Why do you want to sing those songs if you are not ethnically inclined?
Let's go back to an issue we touched on, earlier, in terms of the fact that the opposition really is not the structure of the party called the opposition, but the people. There's a new political phrase or term that has come in Zambian politics. They are calling Mingalato. Is it the PF had Mingalato on the opposition then? Now the UPND is doing Mingalato. How do we measure, Honorable Kabimba, the so-called opposition structures? Because this is why we are having all these problems with even alliances in the opposition. Others feel bigger than the others. We've got more members of parliament. We've got a councillor. We've got this. The PF now is really on eggshells, surviving barely through the court. Is there Mingalato at play in Zambian politics today to decimate opponents?
No. I've heard this theory, that the one who is pushing a death nail in the coffin of PF is HH, or UPND. PF is committing its own suicide. PF is committing suicide. And this started immediately after the death of Michael Sata. Okay? PF has been dying. Let me take you back again to history. When Makaunda lost the election in 1991, he handed over, the party presidency to Kebi Musokotwane, who was once his prime minister. A guy that he appointed very young, and he trusted him very much. Humble teacher, primary school teacher, but good guy. When, for some reason, Kaunda changed his mind, he came and he ousted, not asked, Kebe Musokotwane to leave, ousted Kebe Musokotwane. Mobilized, some youths, and they kicked out Kebe Musokotwane. Kaunda took over power. He didn't want to let go of UNIP. 1996 elections come, he is barred from contesting in that election, and he said, if it is not me, it will be nobody else. So UNIP boycotts the election. That was the death knell of UNIP. And UNIP has never been a political entity to talk about ever again from that time. Chiluba comes. When he sees that he wants to continue with the third term against the provisions of the Constitution, what does he do? He hires, people, form of the clergy, youths within the party, some of his ministers. Michael Sata, my good friend, in the forefront of campaigning for Chiluba. What was the argument? Let him finish the projects which he started, Eva Ishiba, Kotwa Fumaba, everybody justifying the wrong thing that Chiluba wanted to do, to amend the Constitution to suit his whims. Chiluba didn't succeed. Levy comes, very sober guy, disinterested in too much power, genuine looking, and he just wanted to do a job. Levy goes, Arabi takes over, not much, of interest, he loses the election, to Michael Sata. Arabi is at the State House on Saturday morning, the 24th, handing over power to Michael Sata, walking around the State House, joking, between themselves and those of us that were around. Power transition, smooth.
What was the death of the MMD? Since you've clearly stated what the death of UNIP was.
The death of the MMD came after Levy's death. Because
that's when the MMD began to disintegrate.
That's when the MMD started getting dismantled. Okay?
The question, can a former ruling party hold together?
Well, let me just finish this train.
Go ahead.
If you allowed me. Then Michael Sata, the question that you actually ask has been a subject of a research paper by the World Bank in Africa. Okay? That once you see the ruling party lose power, the chances are that it is going into extinction. Okay? But let me continue, this train of thought. So Michael Sata comes, 3 years, the man is gone. Edgar Lungu takes over. He starts the talk amongst his friends, even to people like me, that he's not interested in running again. He said that more than once to me, personally, that he was not interested to run.
Was he sincere?
Exactly. That is the question. The man wasn't. In the meantime, he is doing imingalato behind his colleagues. So they see through. That guy you can't say, afuna ana machabi kuti safuna. So everybody starts playing imingalato against one another. Edgar dies, and the PF is almost leaderless.
Has the death of Edgar Lungu been the last big blow for the PF? Do you think they will rise again?
Edgar was the financier of PF. There's no financier of PF now. Edgar was the financier in PF. Those that were rallying around Edgar, they were doing so not out of loyalty, but out of survival. And this is one thing that we mix, in this country. When you see people around you, they are not necessarily loyal, especially when you hold power or money, they are there because of survival. to accuse anybody that the gradual disintegration of PF as we see it today is because of an outside force is denialism.
It's self-destruction?
Yeah.
That began with the death of Michael Sata.
It's self-destruction. I told the PF when I was there, they thought that I was the obstacle. I was probably one who was telling them the truth. I told them, I spoke against tribalism in the party. I spoke against corruption in the party. Was I wrong? No.
Let me also ask you about this theory, especially when I look at this leadership, race in the PF right now.
Yeah.
Others would say candidate X is with the MCCs. Candidate Y is with the MPs. Candidate Z is with the structures. And you are touted as one who made or probably built these fundamentals through DCs and through these structures. And I hear these arguments now that not even the UPND right now as a ruling party has solid structures like the PF. Do you agree with that? Is the PF still strong with grassroots structures? And I'm hearing this theory that only the person or candidate with the grassroots will take it all to form a formidable opposition. Do you agree with that theory?
You see, the PF has no structures. What it has is a goodwill from those that were in the structures in the past. It has no structures. Okay? But the goodwill from those members of PF that were there and that do not want to gravitate to UPND is still there. Those people are still there. You can only talk about the structures, Costa, if you have registers. What we did during my time as SG, we had registers for every district, for every constituency, for every province. Okay? They don't have that. What I've been told is that during the Davis Mwira era, now, there were no registers that were developed, that were put in place. There are no registers. So people started, the political fellowship of the party started falling apart. There was nobody to galvanize those organs. The party degenerated into violence within the party and outside the party and hooliganism. Now, those vices cannot hold an institution together. They can only destroy the institution. So those that are saying in PF that there is somebody who's got structures, like I hear them now saying that they want to go to the general conference. The question that I ask myself is, who is in possession of those registers? Does Given Luwinda have his own registers? Makebi Zulu his own registers? Mundubile his own registers? And if that be the case, which register is valid and which one is invalid, genuine or otherwise? And if that be the case, at what time do you harmonize all these registers and determine the electoral college at that general conference? So you can say that the whole of this thing is just chaotic.
Can this party rise again? And now, as of last week, we hear that there's this Council of Elders that is meeting and trying to whip together, the opposition to come together, that is the call of the people, that they have the goodwill that you talk about to say, we will support you if you rally behind one leader. Do you agree with that sentiment?
I've been on that road before. Fortunately for me, I've had what I can claim to be extensive experience in this field of alliances, pacts, with the latest one being in which I participated, being the UPND PF Pact of 2009, 2010, and it collapsed about June 2011. Okay? So I know the dynamics of pacts. I know the psychological egos involved in pacts. I know this insatiable appetite of I am the best, and if it is not my way, then it's the highway. I've been there. So, as a believer in historical dynamics, I see these. I see where they are, and I know exactly where. When they formed UKA, Saki came to my office to ask me to join UKA. I told him, go and find the president, go and choose a president or elect a president by whatever method that you have. Then if I think I can work with that guy, I'll join. If not, I'll not. But I asked him the same, one question. What is your instrument that holds UKA together? Where are the rules that hold UKA together?
Same rules that don't exist in the UPND alliance.
Yes, they didn't have. And did UKA survive? It didn't.
How has the UPND alliance survived?
Okay. It has survived because UPND is in power. Just remove the power of government.
So those that are in the alliance are basically benefiting from state power.
Look, I said earlier, and I think this is an important principle, that we often mistake survival of people for loyalty. Okay? I would be very worried myself if people are sitting around with me and they are not asking the right questions or the pointed questions about where we are and where we should be going, and they're just smiling at me and looking innocent, silent. I would worry, because then I would know that I don't think that this is a team that is here for loyalty or faithfulness, but more so for survival. So the point I'm making is that you can get that council of elders. I don't know who they are, but I can tell you that nothing will come out of Tonse. Nothing will come out of, what is the other one? Pact of
People's
Pact. Nothing will come out of there, because the psychology embedded in all the contestants is the same, that none of them wants to be led. They all want to lead. So it's like you have 20 million Zambians, and everybody wants to be president, and nobody should be a minister or a follower.
The earlier, trend analysis you gave of how, KK bounced back and ousted Kebi Msokotwane in 96, and how Chiluba became, selfish to want a third term, and how these disintegrations, for me, show a trend that our political parties and our leaders do not believe in issues of succession. And I think that has been the death of political parties as well. The MMD, but also personalized aspects of how these political parties are. Do we see this happening also in the UPND? Because you feel this sense of sacredness, that it is almost impossible. There's an eggshell silence to mention of any successor around President HH now. We are beginning to see these sentiments of, it can only be HH. He's the best thing that has ever happened.
Look, the laws of nature are the same. We are all bound by the same laws of the universe. Okay? So to think that what happened to X will not happen to you when the circumstances are exactly the same is folly. Okay? I hear these, but I get surprised. I hear these, HH is at a meeting, and somebody stands up and says, Mr. President, you are the sole candidate, in the 2026 presidential elections. We don't want anybody else. Okay? And I said to myself, where then is democracy in the UPND? And this is the same thing that we used to hear about UNIP or under Kaunda. Kumulu nilesa panshi ni Kaunda. What about the rest of us? Okay? I gave an example of Chiluba's bid for a third term. What were the arguments? Let him finish the projects. He's the only one who knows, or something about these projects. Okay? Come to Lungu, same thing. That Lungu must be allowed to come back because he's the only one who can beat HH. That's the only reason why you want him back. Okay? But our colleagues in the UPND are oblivious to that history, which is very clear, and there can't be an exception to it. An organization must evolve. And this idea that the one who is on top must anoint the next leader as if it's a chieftainship is wrong.
You have,
okay?
You have what I would describe, or not what I would describe, what the President Hichilema himself describes as a very special, interesting relationship based on what he said to eulogize your father. Do you have a chance of telling him these things?
Which things now?
What you're saying, that they should not be oblivious to history.
Look, I say what I say with a very clear conscience, mainly in public. There are things that I have discussed with the President Hichilema, which are purely private. Okay? What I'm discussing with you now is public. It's not confidential. It's supposed to be for public consumption. My colleagues in the, or in the UPND and those outside the UPND, why do we deliberately and intentionally destroy organizations which we have so hard worked for? Because we are oblivious of the laws of nature. This is a public debate issue. It's not even for me to sit with HH, in a corner, in a dark corner, and start whispering to him. No. It is my contribution to this nation, that I want to be remembered that I tried to play my role to better this country by being truthful without holding back my opinion. If I'm wrong, I want somebody else that will come to this program next time. They can say, Wynter is wrong. And if indeed they can produce the facts, I'll concede that I was wrong. So, Costa, I'm not one of those people that wants to hold back what is supposed to be for public consumption. I'm saying this to save HH, to save UPND, to save PF, to save my own political party, and those political parties that will come in the future. That it is wrong for us or for any organization to try to put all its eggs in the basket being carried by one man. Because when it tumbles, then you have lost all the eggs.
Does the economic front have a future beyond Wynter Kabimba?
I think it does.
Who is that future?
Look, we have a central. And what I've said to them is that I want to spend the remaining part of my life now reading and doing some writing. If I don't bequeath a large estate to my family, if I don't leave my family with a huge inheritance in terms of money, I want to leave them with ideas. But the ideas should benefit not only my family, but should benefit the larger community and my country at large. So I'm conscious of that. I'm conscious of that. And I've learned a lot, Costa, from the past. And I'm so happy that history has been my favorite subject. I got, for your information, I got prizes in history from Form 1 at Curfew up to Form 5. And I still have those books which I was given as the best history student. So I've come to respect history. And I've said to myself, I can't be an exception to the laws of nature. Okay? I can't be an exception to the laws of nature. I'm mortal. I can die, and I'll die. That's the only certainty of life that I have. I can tell you that I don't know about tomorrow, but I know for certain that I'll die.
Wynter Kabimba, thank you so much for talking to us on Costa this evening.
Thank you, Costa.
Always a pleasure.